right? Because the solutions do not come bottom up. They're not owned bottom up, so they don't stick around. They last till the project lasts, the government scheme lasts, the funding lasts, or the interest of the parties that drive it last. And those parties are not the community or the place that you're working with, by and large. So you don't see solutions sticking. We have, of course, all of this. There were many notable exceptions. There were great examples to learn from, but by and large, this is what we learned as we traveled. So the question was, from the last one, whose goals are these? Whose goals are we? I mean, if it's your goal and my goal and Nitin Kamat's goal and I don't know, Modi's goal, it doesn't matter, right? So this question also got this popped up when we started talking about we need to save the planet, and people say no, the planet will save itself. So what we're trying to do is keep a specific niche that helped us evolve and sustains us going. That's what our interest is. Even 700 million years ago, that niche didn't exist. A certain set of changes allowed us to evolve and allows us to continue. Our interest is in making sure that niche naturally sticks around as long as possible. Okay. So in all our problem solving in the last few decades and maybe even centuries, we have focused on this pillar number 2 and pillar number 3 of what really makes a place livable. I mean, you can slice and dice it in different ways. This was just one framing we came up with, and it seems to matter for any place. If the ecology, if the set of human services that everybody needs, by and large, if there's economic opportunity and market opportunity, and there's some stories that bind us together, there's some pride and identity and connectedness to the place, then a place is considered livable. If any of this starts to break, you will see people sign out of it one way or the other. And in the last, especially in the last 100, 150 years, but I would say in the last 600 years, we have tried to solve for number 2 and number 3 at the cost of number 1. We've actually borrowed from ecology, right? You can go at it from the ism lens: communism, socialism, capitalism. You can go at it from various designs of governance, designs of policies, schemes, etc. All of them have tried to solve 2 or 3 at the cost of 1, assuming that 1 is infinite, right? And we have changed 4 to suit this. Today, our stories are greed is good, shareholder value is paramount. We need growth to lift people out of poverty. Trickle down work. Some of these stories are thankfully getting challenged, but that's, as we grew up, our generation actually grew up with those stories. Our stories were not about letting the forest be, or the the equivalence of creatures in the forest with human beings. Our stories completely wiped out the forest from our imagination, right? So it's our culture and our stories and our pride and identity changed. The parameters we built it around changed completely. So we've looked at it as a place problem. What happens to a place? Organization in Uttarakhand asked us this: कि आप ये करेंगे, ये project होगा, etc. But जगह का क्या होगा in the long run? And then we realized, like, when you multiply that jagah by 6.5 lakh villages in India and 200 and something countries across the world, that's what the planet is. And for each of these places, we have this completely out of whack, completely out of sync. Right? We've all borrowed from the ecology to try and fix 2 and 3. And you cannot fix 2 and 3 if 1 falls below a certain threshold. And we are seeing that across Europe, across China, across Australia, California, India. India is experiencing a heat wave in February right now as we speak. Right, so strange things are happening. So yeah, this was a seed of a thought, and then we started talking to people as we traveled, and realized that, like, at each of our homes, even as we sit in this meeting right now, we are computing for what's happening at home. There's electricity, health's okay, there's food, there's some level of income, if there's education to be taken care of, if any of these falls below a certain threshold, we will attend to it. On a daily basis, on a running basis, we are actually doing trade-offs across these parameters. Right? We will not chase income if there is a very clear sign that we will suffer a huge amount of physical stress or ill health on a long-term basis because of it. You will not let a plumber into your house and destroy your foundation or your furniture. Right? But who does it at the level of the panchayat, at the level of the ward, at the level of the city? Who has that sense of the house? Who's doing this? Maybe people were sitting around the Ashwath Katte and doing it at one point of time. The Dongriya Cones managed to do it for Niyamgiri, the mines. They did a trade-off. But by and large, this is broken. Nobody owns our villages and our cities and our towns and our wards anymore. Right? So we end up chasing each intervention, each method, each scheme, each NGO, each philanthropy, each CSR ends up chasing one or the other variable at the cost of other variables very often. Right? The easy, dumb examples are solar pumps in dryland regions where the water table is already bad. Right? But there are less black and white examples of this all over the place. Farmer incomes being one of them, at the loss of a huge amount of asset quality. Across the country, asset quality measured in terms of water situation, soil health, air quality, local institutions, like the Nirugantis that Vishu talks about a lot. The loss of all this is basically loss of assets. And what sort of economics allows you to gain maybe a 10% bump in income for an 80% drop in your asset value? Right? We're not measuring this right. This is stupid. Right? Then there's the breadth of livelihoods that you had in the village. It's shrunk dramatically. Right? We have in the urban mind today, or in the policy mind, a village equals to farming, but a village was maybe 30, 35, 40% farming. The rest of it was allied skills, allied activities, so many professions, so much production of different sorts. Right? As a result, villages today are buying everything from elsewhere. 94% of villages have an economic red line on a seasonal and annual basis. It's not a great economy for them. Right? And they are losers in the current system, and they are losing assets, and they're losing all of these. So installing this sense of the house through the PRI methods or whatever, there are various approaches to this. Having some indicators which are intelligible to the community can be addressed by the community, and throwing every solution at this is what Intersections is about, really. Right? How does water intersect with livelihoods? Can it be livelihood positive? Can it actually, and I know that you guys do a lot of that work in that space. Can it come with health benefits? At least not harm the health indicators in a place. Are we ending up creating waste because we are trying to increase the number of livelihoods? Are there simple ways to address that in design, in our approach, in our conversations? Right. So this is the kind of stuff we are trying to work with the partners who have social capital and roll out, so that communities start to own the place. And whenever a new idea or a new solution or a new scheme comes in, you actually map it out against your place, like you would do at your home. So yeah, so part of that is to respond and not to intervene. Intervention is a dirty word as of 3 months ago at Rainmatter. What we want to do is create a response set, and as there's a realized need, be able to respond to that particular need. And that response set could come from 5,000 such solutions. A particular CSO or philanthropy or government scheme taking in the 3 things that they know about. For instance, in livelihoods, why do you have to teach everybody mushroom cultivation and tailoring? Somebody might want to create, toothbrushes out of lantana, and there is tech available. Can we help them solve that problem? Right? Can we help them solve if they don't have a water problem? Why are we going with the water solution? And it could differ on two sides of the same hill. And as we have seen in Uttarakhand, a village in Pune, the Rain Tree Foundation has been working with them. I think Himanshu of Aqua Dam is one of the hydrogeologists they've engaged. And what they've done is there's some sort of a body it's not a formal part of the formal Panchayati Raj structure, but some sort of a body in these 9 villages actually looks at the solutions and does the trade-off. In one instance, they rejected doing check dams because some fish travels upstream and spawns there. And while they were looking at the water problem, folks who are responsible for the biodiversity in the area said, this can interfere and reduce our fish stock and our biodiversity. So maybe we'll pick up another solution. That is a beautiful change to see. So can we be ready with responses instead of thrusting solutions and intervening top down from government, from CSO, philanthropy? And can our solutions be net positive or at least neutral? Right? Can we do a need and gap analysis with partners if necessary? If we don't have, can we hold off the urge to take our solutions and work with people who actually represent the place one way or the other to discover them, right? So, and of course, the sense of ownership and the trade-offs you make better because of that. So this is what we're trying to change in terms of problem solving, and we believe that this has a very key role to play in improving our places, in improving the trade-offs across these, and as a result, impacting climate adaptation and mitigation both positively in the long run. Adjacencies are very simple. What is adjacent to water? And how? If water and livelihoods have adjacencies, let's say in the urban and the rural context, right? Then you can of course go fine grain in the recharge context, in the context of Jal Jeevan itself, or the KC Valley project, and so on and so forth. What opportunities arise out of that? Is there a negative impact? Is it neutral? Is there a possibility of creating a positive impact on this? Right. So just a little bit of thought can actually improve the solution dramatically across all of these parameters. Is it creating more resilience or less resilience? Is the solution, let's say, very heavily dependent on spare parts as RO filters are, right? And hence the supply chain. Are there alternatives to that? Is it creating a lot of waste? And if there's no waste management in the area, you will end up with a net loss in 7 years' time, as it happened to many parts, even in rural India today. Outcomes on health, outcomes on incomes, the overall asset qualities, the soil improve because of that. Is there an opportunity to improve soil and biodiversity as you do that? Right. So if we just pause and consider what depends on what is adjacent to what for our own work, and also, there are various tools. Like this is one tool to just map out adjacencies. This is actually borrowed from computer science. I was relating it to my engineering days this morning. And there's systems map that people have made. There are a dozen different tools you can come up with your own. But the core idea is to map out how your work intersects with all of these other bits that matter to people in their context for their place. Right. And again, we're trying to bring a place lens, not just a community lens, because communities will suffer if the places suffer eventually at scale. You can, as long as 30% places are okay, you can migrate out. But if 100% places have this problem, where will you go to? Right. So you have to solve it for the place. It is also important to inform the stakeholders, whether in the community, whether in CSR, whether in government, in policy making, about these adjacencies so that they can deal with it better. Like I asked Harish Hande at Selco saying, sir, can you please publish the adjacency maps around energy? Right? Because people who are looking at water don't think of themselves as solving energy. People who look at livelihoods don't think of themselves as solving biodiversity, and they can. It's very simple. If you are, in the paraphrasing George W. Bush, if you're either you're with us or against us, and if you're solving livelihoods, if you're not climate biased, you're probably causing it harm, right? So, but right now these roadmaps don't exist. This understanding doesn't exist. So, domain experts such as yourself could actually build that understanding for all these stakeholders, so that it becomes easy for them to actually also see what they call co-benefits today. But these are not just co-benefits; they are deeply intersected with this work, right? So that's something we've been trying to push and talk about more. Of course, I talked about the response set, and this is where we need everybody with expertise to participate and create playbooks in a common way. Like the Google search exists because there's a common way of representing data, there's a common way of representing hashtags, and so on and so forth. The playbooks need to be actionable and come with handholding and support. We're trying to create with Jagdish of FES and Living Landscapes a large consortium for data commons. Everybody, like Wikipedia, you contribute 1% but get 99% back. So that's the thought process. Then the directory of vendors, service providers, and you guys do a lot of this. We keep seeing updates from you for how to do this, how to fix that, who to go to. The whole Million Wells effort in Bangalore will become a very major thing. And thank you again for doing this. And biodiversity with the India Biodiversity Collaborative, because unless places understand their biology and their ecological wealth, we are not going to make. We are going to continue to anchor our solutions in mining and not biology. So that's where we come from. Yeah, this is how I end most of my presentations these days. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Samir. Uh, so it's open for questions, folks. I had one. When you were talking, I was just thinking, there is this tendency, no matter, I mean, any community that is involved in any kind of production, or an individual who's involved in any kind of production always thinks of scaling up, of increasing their outputs and thereby increasing their income. And that's how that those Tamil Nadu millets have reached Odisha too, right? I mean, that's the thing that they are reaching for. So that's like an automatically encoded goal in any kind of economic activity, or livelihood related activity. So how does one address, I mean, how does one um, come to an understanding that this far and no further, that kind of a thing,
So
is
I
that
think,
even possible?
yeah, there are two parts to this. One is, I don't think this is universally true across India. A lot of India, especially rural India, has a sense of enough built into our cultural attitudes and practices already, right? Like you keep hearing about the stories where people earn for 3 days and then chill for 4 days a week because that's enough for them, right? So we still have traces of this across the country. We still have living memory of this across the country, and these attitudes exist. And it's also the stories we tell each other, right? So right now the story is coming from a startup India or incubators and noise around VC funding and all that. So those are the stories that get around. But maybe there's an answer in telling other stories, right? But I think there's enough to build on. I don't think most people aren't scaling. I would say 95% of India is, forget scaling, they're barely making ends meet enough as collectives. There may be individuals in there who are in that position, but as villages and clusters, 95% of India is there. So uh, scaling is a far cry for them. And if we can work with these smaller opportunities, and SHGs are great examples. I mean, there's a lot of SHGs which chose to. We actually came across. We were with SVYM in Mysore, There was an SHG which had gone up to 20 women and disintegrated because it became an operational challenge and a management nightmare, and is now back to 6 people and are doing well, right? So I think people also see this and realize this, and people are happy working for 4 hours a day, making a little additional income on the side for $5,000, $6,000 a month, rather than dedicating. This whole idea of specialized one person, one job kind of thing is a very city construct again. Nothing in the world work like that. In rural India, people still do multiple roles. So I think, yeah, people with social capital, people who are working in these places also have that responsibility of making sure these stories get told.
Sahil, yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, Samir. Thank you so much for that talk.
Yes, sir.
Um, I'm sort of haven't moved on from your observation on brooms. I've kind of been stuck there, and I just have like a thought, a question from people you've spoken to and time you spent on the field. So your argument that a lot of money leaks in purchasing these sort of goods, whether it's brooms, biscuits, chips, whatever it is, I take that. That's fair enough. But I'm just wondering, when you then speak to people and you present perhaps an alternative, which is the art of making a broom at home, the art of making pickles at home, of snacks, build made at home, just like generations had done. What is the sort of appetite for this now in the kind of places that you worked in? What are the sort of terms and conditions or
Sure.
ifs and buts that are there?
Yeah.
This makes sense for
No,
me if
I
so and so and so.
yeah, I don't think so. So one is the loss is huge. People understand the loss. It's monetary. It's 150 to 170 rupees for a broom. And the same conversation happened in Bagalur here with the guy who actually has a store, and
Hmm.
he immediately offered to fund an SHG. He
Oh,
realized how much his uh, it's a village not far from Bagalur. He realized how much Velatur was losing on just brooms, and he said, "Sir, this is a very huge problem. I'm going to fund an SHG. Tell me how." I didn't have an answer to the how, which is why we need to assemble the set of responses, go to the biodiversity collective, and say, you know what, can you make your scientific knowledge actionable to people on the ground? Actually, have playbooks assembled so that when people have these urges and needs, we can respond to them quickly. To your point on can we do it how we used to do it at home, I don't think that's happening anymore, right? I think the act of consumption, the act of the little economic circle that has formed around it, I think uh, we are we have changed enough that that will probably persist. But these are huge opportunities for SHGs,
hmm.
right?
Right, right.
So they can organize, and in Orissa, we have seen examples of this happening. One of the SAGs we saw was 1,800 women doing small kitchen gardens, sorting, grading of vegetables, sending it to markets everywhere. These are huge opportunities for SAGs. Could can, I mean, think of how many, an income of a lakh and a half a year is not insignificant for somebody with a half acre, 1 acre, 2 acre patch of land in Coorg. Your basics coming from there, right? Uh, it's it, it's what people chase out there already. So think of what a 20 crore pickle market can do for Coorg,
Hmm.
and a 9-10 crore broom market. I'm not even going for funky stuff like detergent, which is possible. The Timbuktu Collective did. I was speaking to Molly, and she said they did a survey of 25,000 households in that area. And they spent 4.7 crores on soaps, shampoos, and cleaners.
Hmm.
Right? The same set of people go to the government for 25 lakhs for this road project and that lake desilting or whatever. 4.7 crores. I mean, the mind boggles. We came across a 200 household village in Kutch. which spends over 1 crore buying vegetables from a town 12 kilometers away. Right? What does it cost to do a kitchen garden? Right? Not Kalahandi, in Malkangiri in Odisha, we actually did a dipstick survey of a few top needs per category, maybe 45, 50 items. This is a remote village. They are called tough to reach, inaccessible, but the fertilizer companies and the FMCG companies always reach them, right? Five village panchayat with a total of 200 households had a 2 crore spend on these limited set of needs that we presented to them. Out of that, 35% plus was food and food related stuff, including I think 15 lakhs on raw vegetables. We added up like the easy to address ones, like stuff they could fairly easily do themselves. Bioenzymes, bioinputs for their farms and stuff like that. You can't substitute petrol right now for the bikes, so leave that alone. The easily replaceable stuff added almost one job a household at, I think, about 85,000 or 90,000 per year from their own spends. We are not talking about any government subsidy or funding. And it represented a wide variety of biodiversity that you would now need in your village, that you have a relationship with. So I think, yeah, going back, and I think at Bhumi, Helena Norberg had done a session, and she said, the village of the past is gone, and the city is broken. We have to imagine a new hybrid, if you will. We can't peg it in existing notions of what a village was and what a city
Right.
is. Yeah.
I have a follow, but I'll ask later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Avinash.
Thanks so much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Sabir, just to continue this same conversation, the conversation you were responding to Sahil and talking about looking at local market, strengthening local market development for local production, broadly that thing. So in your, what you call your response set, what you'll have, the work that you'll have done, how has it contended? How has the responses contended with the brute force of the FMCG and the that you mentioned? Even in the remotest places, you see the FMCG etc. having penetrated, which brings with it kind of an economics that doesn't it brings with it pricing that somehow doesn't sit in this place. When you construct the place, it as a place problem, it's a in that language it brings. So how that problem, in your response at, how do you crack that problem? How do you, is it the shop guy saying, I understand this, I'm willing to fund the SHG and coming essentially from there, or are there other tools beyond this kind of social capital?
So there are 2-3 things. One is, of course, it's not like we've cracked it. This is just assembled into a set of thoughts and approaches. The response set is not ready. In fact, that's what we are palpitating about, because we have started talking to the MORD, Mission Shakti in Orissa, and various other partners on this. And now we'll have to respond with this response set. So we're speaking to an industry. There are folks like you with a lot of knowledge on various things, etc. All of this is part of the response set, right? Like what Gram Vikas knows in Orissa, what industry does with bamboo value chains, what people do with NTFP, and so on and so forth. So there is just a change in approach of how to respond rather than intervene, right? The problem you highlighted is a very, very real problem. There's no one answer to it. One way, and this is in a conversation with Kudumbashri NRO, we actually came across this problem very, very starkly. I think looking at individual economics versus collective economics are two different things. So collectively, all of these places have a huge red line. Individuals get by because of government schemes, subsidies, waivers, etc., 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 kicking in, right? Or remittances. Collectively, there's a huge loss. So we tried a few experiments with buzz women here, with the Orissa Millet Mission folks in Orissa, somebody in Maharashtra, I forget the name of the organization. We've tried it in, I think, 13 different locations. What's happened is we thought we'll collect data, we'll have to make a story, do the messaging, go back to the communities through these partners, etc., and see what happens. What happened was halfway through the survey, they actually extrapolated numbers. They abandoned the survey and came back to us with requests saying, you know what, we are spending too much on masalas. We need a masala making unit here. We need to create an oil extraction unit here. How do we solve this problem? How do we sell the honey that we are making? We actually got a lot of these questions thrown at us, which is when we actually imagined the response. You know, there's no one size fits all answer anyway. So when people see, when people are organizing into SHGs, and people can't think collectively unless they're a collective. But when they're a collective, they can see the net gain from this. And we are banking on the fact that nobody likes to be a loser. So at an aggregate level, at a collective level, 95% of the country is in the loser position right now. And I say this very brutally, has a begging bowl in their hands. It is in their hands to get rid of the begging bowl. Stop asking for the 25 lakhs when you have 4.7 crores in soap, shampoos, and cleaners sitting with you. So we are hoping that that happens. I don't know if it will happen, honestly. I'm praying very hard. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I take it back. I mean, to me, the reflection of that is then that the quality of that collective, you're using the word SHG,
Yeah.
the quality of that collective institution is so critical for
Yes.
anything else to then play itself out. And
Yes.
that's that you see, if you bring the place problem, framing back and say, listen, is a place problem then also linked finally to, you see good institutions of that nature in some places, but you don't see good institutions of that nature in other places.
But that's fair, right? Like, if we don't own our places, if you do not get up and maintain your house and clean your house on a daily basis, your house will go to the dogs, and that's a perfectly legit outcome. Collectively, now the point is, today we are in a mode where we are recipients of services delivered to us, and this is what the PRI intends to solve, right? Right? We are hoping that kicks in. We are hoping people want to win and at least not want to lose. And there are enough examples we've seen that people have done this. Somebody tried this in Varda with just kitchen gardens. They actually managed a big transformation. You've seen SHGs in Odisha. So it's not like there are zero examples of this. There are many examples of this out there, and it's possible to build upon it, right? Especially in non-urban India, right? How fast does it happen? Whether this sense of the house establishes itself, we are able to make better trade-offs. This is conjecture. You're right about the quality of the institutions. You're right about the uh, it will be abused and bastardized in many places. I don't think that can be helped. But at least if it's like if Indore starts visibly fixing its visible waste problem, it creates a little pressure on other places to, at least a few other places, start to then follow suit. So hopefully some of that will happen. Yeah. Another good opportunity is in the simple stuff, right? Like, there is no way in hell Village India will produce brooms which cost 140 bucks, 150 bucks a pop. Right? It cannot be that expensive. It cannot be like, you can try what you will. A bottle of lime pickle cannot cost you 298 bucks a kg in Coorg. So there are some low-hanging fruits out there which the supply chain cannot compete with. The supply chain is very expensive. It's just that we don't have any alternative left, so we bank on that today. Yeah.
I actually had this thing on what you were saying, the penetration of the FMCG into the villages, and some of this, like for instance, if we think that, instead of spending 4 point whatever crore on buying soap, shampoos, and detergents that come from big companies, they could actually make their own. But there is also an aspirational factor to it. No? For instance, let me give you the example of what Navadashanam is trying to do. They, on the one hand, they supply packaged food, organic food, to the big shops like Namdharis, etc. And on the other hand, they run the CSA, from which the individual subscribers get their
Yeah.
vegetables, groceries, etc. on a weekly basis. So they have been trying very hard to increase the subscriber base so that they could reduce the problem with the shops is you have to supply it in plastic packaging. They don't have a choice because
Yeah.
that's FSSAI requirements and all have to be fulfilled. So whereas to the subscribers they supply in cloth bags and dabbas, reusable dabbas, etc.
Yeah.
So, but they are just not able to do that, because the subscriber base just doesn't go up. It may go up,
Sure.
there's an event, it may go up by a few people, and then over a period of time again it'll fall back
Yeah.
to one. It's kind
Yeah.
of reached a baseline now from which it's not really going up. Even
Right.
they've been around for almost 7 years now. The CSA has been
Yeah.
around.
So this is something we realized. Wherever we went initially, first 4 5 months, we used to get this question saying, "Can you find us market connects?" The millets folks, um, all sorts of FPOs, etc. Can you find us a market connect? Very soon we realized through other conversations that they are the market. They are the largest market out there. FMCG makes the biggest amount of money, biggest amount of margins on tier 3 and below, whether it's unit pricing or large packets of, the single largest packets of chunks of product. There are specific products made for that market, right? More than the urban market. So they are the market. 70% of India is the market, and they have towns and all that around them, so they can serve that market. So that is one realization. How we unlock that, how we uncover that is a question. On the aspiration question, it was very frustrating to come across this question again and again, because one, aspiration doesn't mean a uniform thing. Chennai's urban aspiration is different from Bangalore's urban aspiration, is different from Trivandrum and Kochi and Kanpur and whatever. There are bits and pieces that travel across, but you go to a Chennai for the December kacheris, and you come to Bangalore for a different set of things. And Kodagu has a aspiration. They actually pride themselves on the hockey tournaments and all of that happens. And people travel from Bangalore to go see that. Why isn't there an aspiration on production? Why is there an aspiration only on consumption? It's not your aspiration. It is an injected aspiration. And we've actually pointed this out very, very hard at places, and it sticks. Like, it hurts. The fact that it hurts gives you an opening into trying to change something. How that change will happen, we still don't understand. And maybe, like Madhu Chandan was saying for Mandya, that there's a huge medical problem. Maybe that's the in over there. In some other places, something else will be the in. Right? The trigger of the change will vary place to place, etc. People do aspire to stay back in their places to a great extent. Like yesterday, we heard from, we were speaking to the folks at the Nudge Foundation, and just emergency funding was able to reduce migration by almost 93% in pockets in Jharkhand. So it's not like this myth of that everybody wants to migrate out is not like a universal myth. It may apply to a certain percentage of the population, but a lot of people actually want to stay back home. So there's an aspiration built into that. The aspiration around production is gone because the imagination is gone. Right? I was in Bhubaneswar and saw the museum there, and went. And in the next village, I said, "Boss, your ancestors were producing all of that." fine silks and filigree, silver filigree work and ivory work and woodwork and whatnot, right? Metallurgy. And you can't produce a bottle of pickle. I mean, like, there's something wrong, right? But we don't, we haven't pushed this aspiration around. In the cities, you eat artisanal this and artisanal that, right? Handmade soaps. You pay 150 bucks a little soap piece of soap for that now, right? There's an aspiration around production. There's an aspiration around being a startup and entrepreneur. Why hasn't it traveled to these places? And by the way, it's not like it's not traveled at all. It is traveling in pockets here and there. That story has to travel more. We have to talk about it more. The opportunity, the size of the opportunity being visible itself creates aspiration. When you see 4.7 crores as 4.7 crores, then you see the opportunity. And then Timbuktu actually sought people to teach them how to make soap and try to address that in small ways. Then there's, of course, there's branding, there's the storytelling around it, messaging, etc. I don't think it's a I don't think there's any one straight line answer to this. Many people will try many things, but it's a problem worth solving for sure. And people, there are enough um, there's enough to go with in terms of motivations, in terms of the biggest problem is the visibility of this, the visibility of the opportunity and the visibility of the gap, because the default assumption is that a city needs to buy my products, and that's a huge problem across the country.
And there's this feeling of ghar ki murgi dal barabar.
Actually, though, it's amazing how much village India pays for nati eggs, for instance, or country chicken. It's not universally true. So again, we tend to take examples and extrapolate them, but it's not like any of these things are universally true. There are enough instances to the contrary, and if you understand them and use those behaviors to drive that change, we can actually see a lot of change. There's examples of I think Avinash himself was telling me about some FPOs who are largely consuming all the products that the FPO makes, a 500 FPO organization, 500 farmer FPO, and they've started to realize that the cold pressed oil that they produce is far more superior and healthier. And by the way, at 180 rupees a liter, it's not like cold pressed oil is in the village is more expensive anymore.
Yeah, they're doing that, Samir, but their costs of production has been very different. And if you look at their costs of production, the problem that I was referring to earlier, it is not necessarily, the challenge is not necessarily coming from, it is coming from HR costs, because the HR costs are suddenly comparing what they would earn through a production enterprise like this with, hey, listen, what if I were to migrate? The challenge presents itself in all sorts of ways, So both the first part of the challenge and the migration part and the aspiration part of the challenge are intertwined in many ways, right?
They are. But again, you have to work with the pockets where you find the motivations, right? It's not like the entire population will behave a certain way.
No, and a lot of work of storytelling to kind of both get the right people to see the opportunity and make them create that aha moment for them.
Well, they have to want to create that aha moment for themselves. So that's where we keep going back to the fact that, what, if you don't want to improve your place, you're free to. You're free to. Having this conversation with the government, for instance, is super difficult at this point. Please hold off the urge to intervene. So we need help on these parts, the playbooks, the maps that define and highlight what adjacencies exist with water, and because one trouble we are having is getting other funders, CSR, philanthropies to see their role in climate change, in ecological degradation fixes, and so on and so forth. How communities intersect with it, how their benefits intersect with it, how livelihoods intersect with it. So it'd be lovely to have inputs from you guys on this. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
No, I was. Sahil had a follow-on question, so I was just asking.
Oh no, long pass. That ship has sailed.
Oh, acha. Okay.
No, yeah, no, I was just listening to the other things and now I kind of forgot what was.
Oh, he should have asked it that time.
No.
Anybody else? Any other questions? I think it's a kind of a, the to process what you said is like huge, to, because as you said, we kind of tend to work in our silos, and we're just so into that uh, it's very difficult to look at the larger picture and understand the interconnections, and
So
even
what's
yeah,
helped me is trying to understand emergent systems, not worry about the visible pathways all the way to the end points, and try to discern principles from it and keep applying those principles. Because it's almost impossible to say which paths are going to work, which paths are going to succeed. And you almost set it up for failure when you uh, define a very strict, well-defined thing from start to finish. Yep. Cool. Thank you so much.
thank you so
If
much,
there are any
Samir.
questions, you can ask now, reach out later, whatever. My credentials are there with all of you guys. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really, really, I would say, Nikita, why don't you unmute and speak?
No, I was just, yeah, I mean, just left a message saying thank you. But yeah, just the complexity of even what Sahil asked, and I think got me, like, it tumbling down this whole train of, just every complex problem that he just explained. And yeah, thank you for this.
Yeah, it's hugely complex and really requires a lot of bandwidth and a lot of this thing to process.
Yeah. And it'll be actually nice. Something if you could share the adjacencies thing, and if we're able to kind of make, like, as an organization as well, make an attempt to kind of do this for ourselves, right? So,
That'll be very useful. Yes, I'll
yeah,
do that. Yep. That'll be useful.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you so much, Samir. And
Thank you.
everyone
Bye.
here for attending.
Thanks, Amir. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.